coming at you with another episode. And in this video, we're going to talk about the Final Four. You know, the Final Four was a few days ago. Final Four started this past Saturday, and they just had the NCAA title game this past Monday between the University of Houston and Florida. So it was a really good game. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this, you've heard about it. It was a great game. It came down to the wire. It was a very intriguing game, man. Florida, they really came back. They really did their thing. I commend the Florida Gators for being the NCAA champions of basketball. Y'all did y'all thing. I got to give it to y'all. As hard as it may be for me because I'm a U of H fan. And just to give you a little background, I've been a fan of the University of Houston athletics for as long as I can remember. It started back with my grandfather and my mom. May God continue to rest both their souls. It all started with my grandfather, who was very fond of Phi Slamma Jamma. Some of you may know about Phi Slamma Jamma, which was the U of H basketball team, the famous duo of Akeem Olajuwon. He was a king back in the day, and Clyde Drexler. And there were some other players around them. They was known as Phi Slamma Jamma, right? And from there, I remember my mom taking me to a University of Houston basketball game. It wasn't during the Phi Slamma Jamma era, but it was shortly after that. And at that time, if you were watching U of H basketball like I was, you may have remembered their star player back then was Greg Cadillac Anderson. So leave a comment below and let me know if you remember Greg Cadillac Anderson. And even if you remember Phi Slamma Jamma, feel free to leave a comment below. As I was saying, my mom took me to the game. And it was fun memories back in the day. And from there, just over the time, over the years, I would always keep up with their athletics, whether it was basketball, as I mentioned. From time to time, I would keep track of their baseball team. They had a stretch where they had a really good baseball team. Also, I would follow their track team, and also following their football team in recent years. There was Case Keenum. He was the quarterback for U of H for I think about 4 or 5, 6 years or something like that. That was my guy. I was a big U of H fan. I was a big Case Keenum fan. He did some amazing things for that football team. At one point, if he still don't, I believe he holds the record for most touchdown passes in the NCAA football, right? So, needless to say, as I mentioned, I have always been a big fan of the University of Houston athletics. Now, right now, the U of H basketball team, they made it to the Final Four once again under Coach Kelvin Sampson, right? So they made it to the Final Four prior to this year as well. And I believe even with that, they was very close one year. I think they was either one game out of the Final Four about a few years ago. But U of H has been doing very well in basketball. So although at the beginning I gave Florida a lot of credit because they deserve it, to my chagrin, it's all good. But I wasn't really just disappointed in U of H. I wasn't sad. I felt like they really could have won this game, right? And what I want to do right now is I want to share with you 3 takeaways from this Florida U of H basketball game that was this past Monday. The first takeaway that I received from this game is that overcoming a deficit, right? So, of course, you know, Florida had to overcome a point deficit in order to win this game. And even prior to that, 2 days ago, when they played in the national semifinal game, they overcame a bigger point deficit against Auburn because it seemed like that Auburn was going to win the game. You know, if you was watching the game, a lot of people who were viewing, they assumed that Auburn was going to win the game. And then Florida just came back. Even that same night, U of H came back against Duke. And at one point during that game, I believe it was like maybe a minute left, maybe even less than a minute. Duke had like a 50, 55% chance of winning the game. right? And then U of H came back and won that one. So same thing happened in a title game. U of H, they had not really a commanding lead, but the thing about it is Florida, they stuck around. They stuck around, right? But then at one point, U of H, I believe, had like a 9, 10, 11 point lead with like, maybe 5 or 6 minutes left in the game. And Florida managed to come back. They overcame the deficit, which leads me to this point. It's not about how you start, but it's about how you finish. It's all about completion. It's all about finishing. And I've mentioned this recently because I talk about, us transitioning from the first quarter to the second quarter. And perhaps in the first quarter, some things you may have came across some challenges. You may have struggled. You may be in a situation where you feel like it doesn't favor you, but you still have another opportunity to make it better because the year is not over with. The game is not over with. And I feel like Florida, and they even said it in the post game, on the post show. They believe that they could still win the game, despite how many points U of H was up on them. And even with their star player struggling, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. So even with their star player, Florida, their star player was struggling throughout the game. They still overcame the deficit. And they still won. And you know what? You can do the same thing. As I mentioned before, you may not be in a position where you want to be, but you still have time to overcome the deficit. So that's my first takeaway from the game. My second takeaway from the game is that teamwork makes the dream work. I mentioned before, a lot of people say that, and when I say a lot of people, the media, the analysts, people who watch college basketball, they say that Walter Clayton Jr. is the star player for the Florida Gators. And he did very well against Auburn, as I mentioned, when Florida came back and they defeated Auburn in the national semifinal game. However, in the national title game against the University of Houston, he struggled in the first half. I mean, he struggled so much, he scored 0 points. And he really didn't score until maybe midway through the second half. And his first score was on the free throw line. And I believe I don't have the stats and numbers in front of me, but he didn't score his first field goal to a little, midway through the second half. And he ended up ending the game with, I believe, 11 points. But those 11 points came in the best time possible. It was towards the end of the game. Although he struggled throughout the whole first half and a better half of the second half, he scored 11 points towards the end of the game. And that could have very well been the reason why Florida won that game. At least one of the reasons. Which brings me to my point again. Teamwork makes the dream work. Although Walter Clayton Jr. struggled when he did, his teammates held it down. One of his teammates, I don't recall his name, my apologies, but I don't recall his name, but one of his teammates had 14 points in the first half. So that one teammate picked up the slack for where their star player struggled. And their whole, just not only their particular teammate, but the whole team. It took the whole team to keep them in the game. So that was a prime example of teamwork making the dream work. And I'll say the same thing to you as well. So if it's if you are in a position where if you're a solopreneur or if you're an entrepreneur or if you are a content creator or a writer or whatever the case may be, if you're doing things on your own, first and foremost, I want you to consider getting a team, putting together a team, formulating a team. But in the meantime, I want to encourage you to lean on some resources. So if you're currently struggling with something, or if you feel like you don't have time to perform a task, I want you to reach out to resources. If you have to pay for it, if you have to ask someone to do you a favor, I want to encourage you to utilize your resources because teamwork makes the dream work. If you really, truly want to succeed, if you truly want to win in your journey, in your life, wherever you are, if you want to win, it takes a team to win. Teamwork makes the dream work. So that's my second takeaway from the U of H Florida game. My third takeaway is that instead of playing to win, you're playing to not lose. And I think about this because I've been watching sports for a very long time. And if you've been watching sports like me, you know there have been some historical comebacks over the years. If you think about football, baseball, basketball, if you think about just, a game, you may think about a playoff series. There have been some historical comebacks. And I feel like the reason for the majority of these comebacks is because the teams who had the lead, the teams who were up, they was playing to not lose instead of playing to win. And what I mean by that is that in some cases, they were either being indecisive or they were not making high percentage decisions. And I think about that title game about a couple of days ago between U of H and Florida. And as I was watching the game in the second half, and this is my personal feeling, I'm not a basketball analyst, I'm not an expert. I've never played college basketball or professional basketball. I've played basketball on the playground, but they don't mean anything. But watching the game, based on my observation, I felt like U of H kind of got away from the grit that they were known for. That was the narrative going into the game, that U of H has a gritty team. And I feel like they kind of got away from that grittiness for a period of time. And from what I've seen, I felt like they was playing to not lose instead of to win. And I felt like they could have made better decisions in crucial points of the game. And I was watching the game at one point, and I was just I wasn't really shouting, but I was just saying in frustration, I'm like, man, U of H is shooting too many threes. They shooting 3-pointers when they didn't need to. They was up by a good amount of points at one point, and they were just shooting threes. And as I mentioned before, along with that, they kind of got away from that grit. They forgot what brought them to the party at one point. And that could have been one of the reasons why they lost the title game. So I want to encourage you to, when it comes to your journey, when it comes to your life, stop playing to not lose and instead play to win. Make high percentage decisions. Keep it simple. Don't overthink things. Whatever has brought you to the level, it's okay to adjust, right? It's okay to adjust. We're going to have to evolve and adjust at some points. But if we want to keep winning, don't forget what brought you. If you're already winning, if you already have a lead, and if you want to close it out before you get to that next level, don't forget what got you to that point. So that's takeaway number 3. Instead of playing to win, instead of playing to not lose, you should play to win. So those are my 3 takeaways. Peace and blessings to you as you continue your journey. So just to do a quick week recap of my takeaways from the NCAA basketball title game. Overcoming the deficit. Just know that you're never out of the game. As long as there's some time left in the game, there's some time left in the year. As you're going along on your journey, If you come across challenges, if you see yourself struggling, it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. So it's all about completion. It's all about finishing strong. That's what it's all about. Takeaway number 2, teamwork makes the dream work. Rely on your team. Delegate. If you don't have a team, consider putting a team together. And in the meantime, lean on some resources. Teamwork makes the dream work. And takeaway number 3, stop playing to not lose and play to win. Make high percentage decisions. So there it is, y'all. Those are my 3 takeaways. Let me know what you think about it. Feel free to leave a comment below with your thoughts with my three takeaways. Did you watch the game? Let me know what you think about the game. What were your takeaways from the game? Did you enjoy the game? What did you like most about the game, right? Are you a U of H fan? Are you a Florida Gators fan? If you want to rub it in the comments that your team won, chop whatever y'all be doing, whatever, feel free to leave a comment, man. I would love to receive your feedback. I am Reggie B, aka the Growth Advocate, and I appreciate you all tuning into this video, the latest episode of the Growth Times Infinity podcast. And until the next time, keep growing and keep going.